The Whispering House. Rain lashed against the windows of the old, abandoned house at the edge of town. Katherine stood at the doorway, her flashlight casting a dim circle of light in the pitch-black interior. She had always been drawn to mysteries, and the legend of the Whispering House was one she couldn't resist. The house had been empty for decades, ever since the night the Whitmore family vanished without a trace. Some said their spirits still haunted the place, whispering secrets of their final moments to anyone brave enough to listen. Katherine stepped inside, the floorboards creaking ominously under her weight. The air was thick with dust and the scent of mildew, making her cough. She shone her light around, illuminating cobweb-covered furniture and peeling wallpaper. Each step she took seemed to echo through the empty halls, amplifying the feeling of being watched. As she moved deeper into the house, she remembered the stories her grandmother used to tell. According to legend, the house was built on cursed land, and anyone who entered was doomed to be trapped by the spirits of the past. Katherine shook off the chills that ran down her spine. She didn't believe in ghosts, but the eerie silence of the house was beginning to get to her. She reached the grand staircase that led to the second floor. The steps groaned in protest as she ascended, her flashlight flickering slightly. She paused, straining to hear over the sound of the rain. Was that a whisper she heard? She dismissed it as the wind and continued to the top of the stairs. The second floor was even darker, the windows boarded up, allowing no light to penetrate. Katherine walked down the hallway, the walls lined with portraits of the Whitmore family. Their eyes seemed to follow her, adding to her growing unease. She found the master bedroom at the end of the hall and pushed the door open. The room was surprisingly intact, as if it had been preserved in time. A large four-poster bed dominated the space, draped in dusty, moth-eaten curtains. Katherine approached the bedside table, where a small, ornate box caught her attention. She opened it, revealing a collection of old letters. Her curiosity piqued. She picked one up and began to read. The letters were written by Margaret Whitmore, detailing her fears about the house and the strange occurrences that plagued her family. Katherine's heart raced as she read about the whispers that kept Margaret awake at night, the cold spots that appeared without warning, and the feeling of being watched. The last letter was unfinished, ending abruptly with a large ink blot. A sudden noise from downstairs made Katherine jump. She clutched the letter to her chest, listening intently. It sounded like footsteps. She turned off her flashlight, plunging the room into darkness, and waited. The footsteps grew louder, ascending the stairs with slow, deliberate steps. Katherine's mind raced. She wasn't alone in the house. She debated whether to hide or confront whoever was there. Gathering her courage, she stepped out into the hallway, her flashlight off to avoid detection. She moved silently, trying to see who or what was coming. The footsteps stopped at the top of the stairs, and Katherine held her breath. The air around her seemed to grow colder, and she felt a chill run down her spine. She strained her eyes in the darkness, but could see nothing. Then, she heard the whisper. It was faint, barely audible over the sound of the rain, but it was there, a soft, sinister whisper, speaking words she couldn't understand. She felt a presence behind her and spun around, her flashlight flicking on just in time to catch a glimpse of a shadowy figure at the end of the hall. Katherine's heart pounded as she backed away, the figure slowly advancing towards her. She fumbled for her phone, intending to call for help, but it slipped from her trembling fingers and clattered to the floor. The whispering grew louder, the words clearer now. "Join us. Stay with us." Panic surged through Katherine. She turned and ran, the figure following closely. She reached the staircase and practically flew down the steps, her feet barely touching the ground. She could hear the whispering all around her, as if the walls themselves were speaking. She reached the front door and yanked it open, the storm outside offering a cold but welcome escape. Katherine didn't stop running until she was far from the house, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She dared a glance back and saw the house looming in the darkness, the whispers fading but still haunting her ears. Katherine didn't stop until she reached her car. She fumbled with the keys, her hands shaking uncontrollably, and finally managed to unlock the door. As she slid into the driver's seat and slammed the door shut, she tried to catch her breath. The rain pounded against the roof, and she could still feel the chill of the house clinging to her. She started the engine and drove away, casting one last look in the rearview mirror. The whispering house stood silently in the rain, its dark windows staring back at her. She knew she would never return, but the whispers of the house would stay with her forever, a haunting reminder of the night she dared to uncover its secrets. From that day on, Katherine never spoke of her experience at the Whispering House. She moved to another town, started a new life, but the whispers never left her. Every night, as she lay in bed, she could still hear them, calling out to her, urging her to return. She knew she never would, but deep down, she wondered if she had truly escaped, or if the house had claimed her soul that night, just as it had the Whitmore family all those years ago.